Hey everybody. Great to see you. It's October 22nd. It's a Saturday, and I have the great honor of being here with a very, very good friend of mine, Mr. Seth Parks. Seth, if you'd like to just tell everybody who you are.
Well, as
Seth
Jacqueline said,
Parks.
I'm Seth Parks, and I am a director of development at Guy Walks Into a Bar Productions, a little film company here in New York City. So, script development is what I do, and with Jacqueline, a bit of novel development, which has been a lot of fun. I read a lot of books and scripts for my work, so to which I think is actually how this introduction came about. My boss passed along one of your novels, and I completely loved it. And I just felt like I had to lend my thoughts because I can't help myself. And you were kind enough to take my notes. Um, and then you actually liked my notes, and that struck up this working friendship that we've developed, and it's a beautiful friendship, and it's such a joy to work on your writing.
Oh, well, that's a very nice introduction. Thank you so much. And I'd love to fill in a few little points there. Seth is
Yeah.
an incredible editor. Um, he brings his heart and soul to any project. And he has been an absolute, talking about you in third person, you have been an absolute gift to my process. And I promise not to cry today, but I will tell you that you've made a huge difference to my writing. You've brought attention. It's always good, everybody, you know this, it's always good to have an extra pair of eyes. In other words, not your partner, not people who want to tell you what you want to hear, but somebody that will
Yes.
say, you know what, look at that again. And then when you look at it, you do realize what the deal is there, and so it's invaluable. And I'd used an editor on another project about 5 or 6 years ago, and again, I can't overestimate the value of an editor. So Seth and I, we've rattled around in New York together. I've watched, if you don't mind me saying, Seth, you went from a very young man when I
Yeah,
first met you, very,
yeah.
very,
I
very
mean,
young man.
we've known each other a while now.
We have. And so it's been wonderful to see you blossom in your personal and professional life. It's been wonderful to watch that. And even though I left New York City because I used to live in that, so I know Seth. Um, we keep in regular touch. So I'm really thank you so much for your time today. I appreciate
Yeah.
as a new dad, brand new baby
Yeah.
boy.
New
This
baby boy, 2 months
Yeah,
old.
two
So
months old. Oof.
yeah, that's the little bit of sleepiness, but he's doing great and he's growing, and we're completely obsessed with him. So
You have that glow
yeah.
of something. I think an experience I've never thought I'd have is here, and it's amazing.
Yes, yes, exactly.
Yeah, wonderful. So yeah, so your work as well, right? So you're in this industry, you're constantly looking at good ideas, and I think the value that you bring to any book project, just want to blow your trumpet a little bit here, is that you do see the visual, you see the potential for anything to be developed into either a series or a movie or a documentary. And I think that you've
Yeah.
really got that zoom out perspective as well as that incredible zoom in. Take a look at this paragraph again. Uh, so so
Yeah.
I think people should. We'll put some information after this conversation how people can reach you perhaps if they
Yeah,
wanted you
absolutely.
to help them with some projects. So I thought we would start with the book that you read the most recently, and that
Hmm.
is Wall Street Diva.
Wall Street Diva.
Yeah. Now, remind me, was it 3 rounds that we did together on this book?
It was, yes, I believe it was at least 3 rounds. Um, so we started probably a little over almost 2 years ago on the
Wow.
process. I think you sent me
Mm.
the first, uh, well, it wasn't your first draft, definitely, but the first draft that I read. And yeah, it's really amazing to see how much it's developed in that time. And I think we've really had the benefit of working in your books over time.
Hmm.
And I think that's something that you are very diligent and patient to sit with your characters and to sit with the books, which is something that greener writers don't want to do.
Mm,
And I think that's why it's so much fun to work together, because I can tell you down to a sentence if something's bad, or I can
mm-hmm,
tell you, something is not coming through overall. I know for Wall Street Diva, for example, it has this amazing flow that's actually become even stronger, where you kind of have this. We essentially go on the journey of Katie's life.
mm-hmm,
Um, I couldn't even give you the exact years because I just feel like I'm watching her grow up. Um,
mm-hmm,
but you have younger Katie where she's just starting out on Wall Street.
mm-hmm. Just to let people know who we're talking about. So this is the
Yes,
protagonist
Katie.
of the
Yeah.
heroine, if you will, reluctant heroine, Katie Delaney. She's in her early 20s, privileged, and she comes in on a red carpet virtually to Wall Street. The doors are all opened for her. There's no ceiling at all. And I just want to quote a line that I think really summed up that early draft where you said something along the lines of she's either not sorry and she doesn't apologize to anybody or something. There was a line that could have just been on the back of the book. The words fail me right now, but it was along the lines of this is someone who's there's no apologies to make. She doesn't say sorry to anybody, and actually you weren't alone in people found her a little brash and shallow. And I want to just say
Uh-huh.
to people writing out there that it's okay to have a character that's a little bit obnoxious in the beginning.
I think that's actually what I enjoyed about Katie. And thank you for setting the stage. This is why you're the storyteller, and I get caught up in the details of everything, and I'm thinking about 10 things at once. So,
Hmm.
but Katie Delaney is somebody who, yeah, we meet her at 21, I think
Hmm.
she's
Hmm.
about, and she's fresh out of college, just starting on Wall Street. So she thinks she knows it all.
Hmm.
She is kind of privileged, so she's walking with that air, but she's also a woman um, at a time, in the 90s
Early
or
90s.
early 90s, yeah, when
Hmm.
that was not. I mean, she's kind of a unicorn in the pit, in the
Hmm.
trading circles there in Wall Street, where she's having to scrap and fight for any ounce of respect.
Hmm.
Uh, and it's already such a tough environment. I mean, I have friends who work in finance, and some things have not changed, and thankfully some other things have changed. But the need for a woman to scrap and fight has not really changed,
Hmm.
in my opinion. And I think that's what starts to bring out the character in
Mm.
her. So yeah, she's brash and she's
Hmm.
shallow, but she needs the brashness. And the shallowness is in some ways a cover. And I think for us, we get to dive into our emotions. And so that's what I love. And that's what I was kind of getting at with,
Hmm.
we go on this journey with her over 10 or 15 years where we see her as young Katie, thinks she knows it all, realizes she really does not know it all. And then there's this middle section of her life, which I think I can say is in London. Am I allowed to?
Hmm. Yeah,
I don't know
totally.
how much I'm allowed to reveal on this. So,
Hmm.
but it's really exciting time where she learns a new part of the business there, but
Hmm.
also a lot about herself. And
Hmm.
then there's her a little seasoned, and she's not a kid anymore, and she's been promoted a few times,
Hmm.
and now she actually does know what she's doing, but she also knows a lot more about herself emotionally, and we get to enjoy and feel the heartbreak of her really experiencing those raw emotions.
Mm.
um,
Yeah, you're right. It's a geographical move, pulls her out of the the court of the favorites,
Yeah.
and throws her to the lions in the sense that the London, they're a very different kettle of fish. I mean, obviously I'm from London, so and I have friends in finance who work on the London Stock Exchange. Very different culture in many ways. So she really does earn her stripes. I'd say the first two stripes of a trading career there. And then that's when we bump into a substantial love interest, because the implication is, of course, she's had relationships here and there, but this is a substantial one.
Yeah. It's the first one that really puts her career and her life into a little more perspective,
Mm,
where Katie is sort of all about Wall Street and her career. And then she runs into this love interest and she questions that for a minute
mm,
and wonders about another life. And she has to make do. Her father is an absolute legend in New York on Wall Street, and everybody knows him,
mm-hmm,
everybody loves him. And she's kind of always either standing on his shoulder or walking in his shadow.
mm-hmm,
And that balance, or that sort of contrast, is always at work in her. And he's this person just
mm.
being,
Omnipresent, right?
omnipresent, who you feel in that moment when she's questioning kind of her career, and does she want to move forward with this love. And he's Irish, so he's not in love with the idea of her falling in love with this kind of aristocratic English man.
Her
And I think
father's
that,
Irish, yeah.
I mean, it just down to,
Yeah.
that's the thing about it, down to the blood, this conflict,
Mm-hmm.
this kind of constant conflict comes out. And I think
Mm-hmm.
that's what's so fun about Wall Street Diva. Um, and if I can just say about Jacqueline's writing, where, I can say, okay, this is a story about a young woman who is a trader on Wall Street, and it's all of her, um, you know, deviant behavior, her fights, her scraps, her adventures on Wall Street. And it's like, that's great. That's a really cool plot. I mean, that,
Mm-hmm.
catches my attention and I want to open it, but I'm not going to go past chapter 1 or 2 unless I have something to really dig into. And I
Mm.
think that's what I really love about Jacqueline's writing, is that we start to get into the heart of every character and what drives them. And you realize, for me, it was realizing how much Wall Street is associated with her father's love that drives Katie to, he's not a man who says, I love you or I'm proud of you.
Oh gosh, no.
And I think we can all relate to that,
Mm.
and or that desire to hear that,
Mm-hmm.
desire to be seen and to be loved. And that's what drives her. And I think that comes out in her actions, in her words, in her relationships.
Mm.
And when I see that interacting, even when she's being super shallow,
Mm.
that grabs my attention. That keeps me going. That makes me wonder what decisions she's going to make. And I think that's why I love working with Jacqueline, and why this book is so engaging, because
Mm.
it's fun, but it's full of heart, and it's certainly full of drama.
Oh, for sure. Yeah, full of drama. Thank you. That's very kind of you to say that. And these layers have been delicately laid down. A lot of the process has been working with you and pulling stuff apart and saying, where's this going? Where's this behavior going? Because every wound, every need in a human has a call to action, and sometimes those
Yeah,
calls to action go nowhere. So, and
yeah,
I think that we have a natural arc. And so, just to give people a little backstory, I used to live in Hell's Kitchen in New York City. And I was in a bar one day, just a neighborhood Irish bar, and I met a lady came in and she just stuck a clutch bag on the counter like she owned the place, and she just sat down and the bartender came over, and it was like a scene out of Cheers, that old show, and he just said, "I have no idea what you're going to drink today," and she goes, And she came up with this exotic drink, and that was the joke with her. She became a very good friend of mine. And I couldn't help but to make a comment about that, and we just started gabbing on. And then I found out she was a trader on Wall Street, and I sat for hours just talking to her about all the stuff that she experienced on Wall Street. And I'm like, you know what? I don't know if there's a book out there that really talks about the early 90s, you know? And I mean, there's all the high points. You've got the dot-com crash,
Yes.
you've got unfortunately you've got 9/11, which just
Mhm.
erased level to the ground so many trading firms and
Yeah.
created it was like T.S. Eliot. It was like a wasteland
Mhm.
of just no one's reputation counted. It was just everybody was devastated. So I don't want to give too much away about the book, but there's a lot of richness to it, a lot of layers to it, and it's a two-book series, as you know. So it ends. Racking my brain. It ends 2002, so we're
Mhm.
about to launch into another massive episode of her life on Wall Street. But I'm just trying to think. What is there another? Are there any characters apart from her dad and Katie that for you felt significant?
Yeah, I think Penny in London. So that Penny is her boss in
Yeah.
London, and she is married to an aristocrat.
Hmm.
He's a lord. I don't
Yes.
remember his exact title because it's
Orlings. Yes.
long. Um, and she loves being married to an aristocrat. And she is, I mean, every bit as brash, but in a kind of posh way
Yeah.
where everything feels like a put down and
Yeah.
everything is a put down.
Yeah.
But she becomes a friend, and she definitely takes an eye towards Katie, and that has its own ramifications. But
Hmm.
she, is a bit of a model. And I think this is the cool thing about that middle section. Like I said, she grows a lot in London, where she sees this woman who's three positions ahead
Mm.
of her and is very powerful, very respected, huge presence in London and therefore in world finance.
Oh yeah.
And Katie grows a lot under her, but then grows enough also to understand some of the things that are wrong with Penny,
Hmm.
or some of the things that she wants to do differently, or they just clash,
Mm.
and they have just as big of egos as the men.
Hmm.
And that's such a great dynamic that they have. It's this kind of dance that they do.
It's
And I
like
think
two
it's a,
cockerels, isn't it, in a
oh
cockfight,
my gosh.
except
Yeah.
they're hens. And it's like
Yes.
she's sharper than Katie, and
Mhm.
so it's like Katie, I wouldn't say gets blunted at all, but I think Katie softens because she sees the timeline that she could be going on. Where
Right.
yeah, this woman's got all the money in the world, but you find out how vacuous and empty her life is. Okay, and there is
Yeah.
something in Katie that goes, it's an aha moment. Where I want, yes, I love this work. I love what I do, but guess what? You know, I have a heart and a soul,
Yeah.
and there's this beautiful, divinely named Rupert Brooke. I love He's one of my favorite poets. Of course, that's where the name came from. And he's just divine inside and out. And he creates the perfect canvas for Katie to make another load of mistakes, but also a lot of wholeheartedness comes out of
So,
her,
so yeah, to
blossoming.
bring to the viewers, to bring the drama to the forefront. So Rupert is Penny's brother, and
Yeah,
Rupert
little brother.
is the love interest that we were alluding to
Hmm.
earlier, that
Yeah.
kind of fits Katie's world.
Yeah,
And
it's
so
like a
that's
triangle.
another twist in the
Hmm.
drama of Penny and Katie.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And and also, we haven't mentioned a character that I feel casts his
Oh,
shadow over the book, and it's not her
yeah.
father. It's
This would
this
be the
guy called
one.
Jimmy Doyle, right? And he's the perfect rascal. I'm not going to say villain. He's a rascal.
No, right.
Um,
So yeah, I would definitely say, apart from Katie and her father and Penny, definitely Jimmy Doyle is probably one of my favorite characters. He's every bit a Wall Street guy that you would kind of expect, but also he feels like a guy who could walk into a firefighter's bar
Mm,
and outdrink everybody and leave everybody laughing and having a great time. And he's just a guy who feels comfortable in every setting.
mm,
And of course, Katie, he's a little older than Katie, and she's smitten immediately.
mm,
But he is married,
mm.
not happily, but he's Catholic, so divorce
That's
out is
right.
the
Mm,
question. And it creates such a I mean, it kind of pierces Katie's heart, and it
mm,
creates this emotional journey that she has to go on with Jimmy, where she just can't get over him.
mm,
And I think that is always, and he's always around because it's Wall Street and they inevitably do deals together, or they work together, or some merger is happening and they're
mm,
working together. And that's sort of forcing her to always be facing him, thinking about
mm,
him. And of course, her father doesn't really care for Jimmy or his style. It's a little
mm.
different than he did it. And there's probably a bit of, you know, her father's out of Wall Street. And so there's
Exactly.
that he's the young guy on top, Jimmy is.
Mm-hmm.
So there's always a bit of jealousy
Mm,
from the old guy.
mm,
And it creates a great dynamic. And I think that's what's also fun about Wall Street Diva is that you at times feel like you're on the trading floor.
mm,
And so we have all these relationships and you understand the dynamics,
mm.
but the scene is a big deal is going down and I need this stock at that
Yeah.
price at these numbers.
Mm-hmm.
And and Jacqueline does a great job of explaining what an OTC is, uh, and
Yeah.
all this kind of stuff, like very technical things, which I really love, and I think that's something we talked about.
Yeah, we did.
We call it we always call it ER dialogue, which is in a hospital setting in a movie or show, it's always fun when the doctors say, I need 20 cc's of Glycosmidacin, and you have no idea what they're saying, but it's
Yeah.
so just engaging, and you're like, yeah,
I'm right in there with the
I
operating theater.
so we're on the trading floor,
Yeah.
and it's like, yeah,
Adrenaline
I need 50
right now.
things at 85 points and
Mm.
yada yada yada,
Yep.
and I'm gonna go make a deal. As soon as I put this book down, I'm gonna go
Billions
start
of
trading.
dollars later, right?
Yeah,
Billions and billions of dollars pass through these traders' hands every day. And it's a lifestyle. It's a
yeah,
culture,
it is.
and there's been a lot of. I think this book is timely because there is a lot of dialogue about the toxic nature of Wall Street and some of the the stock exchanges
Yeah,
because the effects on all of us are seismic.
it's
We know
true.
that with the housing crisis. So
Right.
that there's a bigger picture too. And like I said, it's a two book series, and I think we're going to be heading into that towards the housing crisis, which fascinates me because obviously I've
Yes.
dipped into this whole world now. Um, but yeah, so that's it really. I mean, book one, I'm excited to get on to book two. We both are in that creative space. You're a new dad and you've got new projects at your workplace, and it's a wonderful new horizon for both of us. So I wanted to just really just thank you. If there's anything you have that you would like to say about the book before you leave, or any
Yeah.
closing points.
I just think it's worth everybody's time and it's worth reading. And
Thank you.
that is something that I, I mean, as I said at the beginning, I work in film and script development, so I read a lot. And to be able to work on great writing is not as common as I wish it was. To be able to just pick something up that Um, we knew each other
Mm,
when I started reading your work, but I certainly had never read your writing. And from that first moment, it was just great writing. I mean, the characters,
thank you.
um, what I love is that you dive into the moment and they're small moments, but there's so much going on with the characters emotionally. And then also there's a plot driving us forward and
Mm,
you're always pushing us forward. And I think that's what I really love about your work and something that we were able to dig into as we
hmm
edited and developed and helped to make the story so strong. And I think, what I've read now is such a stronger version of the story
mm,
where just every chapter leads to the next and it builds. And what's really cool for the reader is that stuff you read from the beginning comes out in the end
mm.
and it matters in the end. And I
Yeah.
think that's so satisfying. And that's also why people should read the book because that doesn't just happen. That takes great writing.
Oh, thank
And
you.
I
Thank you.
think that that's why I really enjoyed it,
Mm.
where there are moments that I cried at the end of the book because of things that were built at the beginning of the book. And for me, there's nothing more satisfying as a reader. So
Well,
go get a copy.
you had a hand to play in that, and I just want to say here and now that you would often just say, right, we're going to start with the heavy stuff, the heavy lifting, and I'd be like, oh,
Yeah.
I wanted him to
Yes.
say yes, it's ready. But you were really sweet the way you presented it. You're like, no, but this is you need to keep an eye on the on where the plot's going, and you did have a lot to do with structuring out, if you will, the purpose, the overall purpose of a book, because you sometimes forget when you're embedded in these characters' lives that you suddenly
Yes.
like, oh, it can either be a series of diary entries or it can be a plot-driven novel, right? So
Yeah.
you really pulled me onto a different train line, if you will, a couple of
Yeah.
times where you said, Jax, this needs to happen here. And so I want to thank you so much for your massive contribution in partnering with me on this. And again, I'm going to leave Seth's details for anyone to reach out that has a project that they would love to just take that extra effort in honing their work. It's well worth it. And Seth's a wonderful guy. So, all right, I'm gonna stop recording, but please stay on. Thank you so much for your time, Seth.